Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vigno Prashantaye. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Mavet Vishavahai. Om Shante Shante Shantihi. Agajanana अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजानन महर्निशं अनेकदन्तं भक्तानां एकदन्तमुपास्महे श्रीमहागणपतये नमः गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः उमाकोमलहस्ताब्ज सम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம் சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தஹே जगदः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ श्रीपार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കനായി കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Little bit under the weather, so my voice may not be too clear, but all right. So we'll continue from do a review of Dasakam 2 from stanza 7, and then let me just see. Maybe Shalini, you can do Dasakam 2, and then Rati ji can do 3.
Sure, Rajesh. एवं भूततया हि भक्त्यभिहितो योगः स योगद्वयात् कर्मज्ञानमयात् भृशतो मतरो योगीश्वरै गीयते सौन्दर्यै परासात्मके त्वयि खलो प्रेम प्रकाशात्मिका भक्तिः निःश्रममेव विश्वपुरुषैर्लभ्य रमावल्लभा
That first and second line.
निष्कामं नियतस्मध.
So in the first and second line, after Bhakti Abhihito, there is a comma. Second line after Brishottamataro. Okay. So just make sure you have it. Okay. Keep going.
निष्कामं नियतस्वधर्म चरणं यत्कर्मयोगाभिधं तद्दुरेत्यफलं यदौपनिषद्ज्ञानोपलभ्यं पुनः तत्त्वाव्यक्ततया सुदुर्गमतरं चित्तस्य तस्मात् विभो त्वत् प्रेमात्मक भक्तिरेव सततं स्वदीयसि श्रेयसि.
After Tasmat Vibho, third line, there is a comma. And then Tvat Prematmaka Bhakti Deva. And that's a separate line. I think you are joining it. Tasmat Vibho Tvat, you said. It's Tvat Prematmaka Bhakti Deva is fourth line. And then a comma. Okay.
I'll make that note. अत्यायास कारणी कर्मपाटलानि आचार्य निर्यान्मलाः बोधे भक्ति पटे तवप्यु उचितताम् आयन्ति किं तावता क्लिष्ट्वा तर्कपठे परं तव वपुः ब्रह्माख्यमान्ये पुनः चित्तार्द्रत्वं मृते विचिन्त्य बहुभिः सिद्ध्यन्ति जन्मान्तरैः.
Tvadbhaktistu. Sorry, fourth line also after vichintya there is a pause. Okay, in the fourth line. Chittardratvam mrite vichintya. And then bahubhis. Yeah.
Tvadbhaktistu kathara samrat झरी निर्मजनेन स्वयं सिद्ध्यन्ति विमल प्रबोध पदवीं आक्लेश सतस्तन्वति सद्या सिद्धिकरी जयत्यये विभो सैवास्तु मे त्वत्पद प्रेम रौधीरसार्द्रत द्रुतरं वातालयाधीश्वरा. इति श्रीमन्नारायणीये द्वितीयं दशकं समाप्तम्.
The fourth line, first part, right? Prema Praudhi Rasardrata.
Prema Praudhi Rasardrata.
Yeah, the dha, it's a second dha there. So Prema Praudhi Rasardrata.
Prema Praudhi.
Yeah.
Make a note.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Prati, you can do the third. I think we did until 1 to 6 or something. Yeah.
Okay, Rajesh. Patanto namani pramadabharasindho nipatita smaranto rupam te varadakatayanto gunakataha charanto ye bhaktaha tvaikalur ramante paramamun aham danyan manne samadigata sarva bilashitan.
First line, Prati, 1 second. First line, nipatitaha. There's a visarga at the end of that first line.
Okay. Nipatitaha.
Yeah. And then the second line, after rupam te, there is a comma. Okay. The second line.
Okay.
Keep going.
Gada klishtam kashtam tava charana seva rasabarepi anasaktam chittam bhavati bata vishno kurudayam bhavat padam boja smaranarsika nama nivahan aham gayam kuhachana vivatsyami vijane.
Again, second line after bata, bhavati bata, there is a pause there in the second line. Yeah.
Okay. Kripate jada chet kimava nahi labhyam tanuvritam madikya kleshauga prashamana dasha nama kiyati na ke lokesmin anishamai shoka birahita bhavat bhakta mukta sugagatim asakta vidatate.
So, third line, shoka birahitaha. There is a visarga at the end we added there.
Okay.
Similarly, fourth line, muktaha. There is a visarga sound there.
Okay, Rajesh. Muni prauda ruda jagati kalu godat magatayo bhavat padamboja smarana virujo narada mukaha charantisha swairam sadata parinirbhata parachit sadananda dvaita parimagna kimaparam.
The first line, rudhaha. Again, visarga sound there.
Okay.
The first line.
Bhavat bhakti speeda bhavatu mama saiva prashamayet ashesha kleshaugam nakalu hridi sandeha nikaha nachet vyaso nachet vyaso
Vyasas yoktihi.
nachet vyasa soktihi tavacha vachanam naigama vacho bhaven mityaratya purusha vachana prayamakilam.
So again, fourth line there, tavacha vachanam naigama vacho bhaven mithya, and then a comma there.
Okay,
The third and fourth. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Bhavat bhaktis tavat pramukha madura twadgunarasat kimapyaruda chet akila paritapa prashamani punaschante swante vimala paribodo dayamilan mahananda dvaitam dishati kimata pratyama param.
Yes, I think that's where we stop.
Okay.
So just make sure, at least earlier on, you're putting the markings in the right spot, because what will happen is you'll think it is not important and then you might overlook it. But later on, it's going to be very hard for you to come back and put it. And only it was primarily two reasons, right? Now, you can, of course, say the whole thing continuous without any stop, because that's how it's written. But we all won't be able to do it, which means you'll end up stopping in different places. And that might, first of all, mess up things a little bit in terms of the meaning. And two is when you're doing the Parayanam, everybody else will be saying one way and you will be standing out saying somewhere different, right? So that's why trying to, as much as possible, I'll try to correct you all to be consistent with it. So, all right. So let's move on to from the seventh stanza today. Let me see who I had. Lakshmi, you can be student, and Kalpana, you can be student. Stanza 7. Vidhuya kleshan me कुरुचरणयुग्मं धृतरसं भवत्क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अत ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते. Third dashakam, we've been seeing about what are the qualities of a perfect devotee, and then prayers to become that perfect devotee, right? Like we said, so that you can now get closer to Bhagavan, who was described in Dashakam 2. So the first thing, like we said, when we all have physical problems or mental problems, then we cannot devote ourselves to continuous praying or continuous chanting or any of those things. So here it says that each part of the body, he says, Guru Arpa, you have to make my feet better. I should not have any problems in feet. Why? It says not because I can just run. Of course, you want to run as well, but it says Bhavat Kshetra Prapto. Because if your feet are not proper, I cannot come and visit your temples. So you got to make my feet better so that I can go visit all the Punya Kshetrams. Next, your Karam Apichate, if your hands are not proper, if you're not able to hold things properly, he says, I cannot then perform puja to you. So you got to make sure my hands are proper, my fingers are working properly, so that I can actually offer the flowers and do puja to you. Next, eyes. imagine, first of all, living without eyes is very hard. But he says you have to make sure my eyes don't go wrong, because if your eyes are not fixed, I cannot see your beautiful form. Right? So we cannot visualize everything in our mind. So we want to be able to see the picture. We go to the temple, we want to be able to see Bhagavan there. So you have to fix my eyes so that I can see your particular form there. Then my nose, I'm suffering with a cold right now. I can't smell anything. So now, but he says, if my nose is never working, he says, then when we put the tulasi on you, the tulasi smell lasts for 2-3 days afterwards, right? So I cannot smell the tulasi flowers which are put on you, right? If my nose doesn't work properly. And then most important, shravanam, if my ears are not proper, then I cannot hear all your glories and about everything that people are talking about you, right? He says, with this way, you have to remove all the physical ailments I have and make sure my individual body parts are working fine, so that I continue to go in devotion, right? That's why in the beginning of, for those who know Devi Mahatmyam, we chant, Devi Kavacham at the beginning, which is like a protection. Here also, we're going to learn Narayana Kavacham. I'm going to teach at the end. All the Kavacham is important to say in the beginning, because so that if your body has problems, you cannot spend your time doing devotion. You'll be distracted all the time with other body problems. So that is a prayer here to make sure, remove all those ailments I have. Vidhuya kleshan me, put a comma, Kuru charana yugmam dhrita rasam, and then put a plus, bhavat kshetra praptau, and then a comma, because the charana, which is the feet in the previous one, is connected to bhavat kshetra praptau. So Kuru charana yugmam dhrita rasam, put a plus, bhavat kshetra praptau, comma, karamapi chate pujana vidhau. Bhavan Murtyaloke Nayanam. If you have a ma there, first put a im and then a comma. Nayanam, comma. Next word starts with the a. Atha te pada tulasi, put a plus. Parigrane granam, then a comma. Granam is to smell. Granam, comma. Shravanamapi te charu charite. Vidhuya kleshan me Kurucharanayugmam dhritarasam bhavat kshetra praptau karamapi chate pujana vidhau bhavan murtyaloke nayanam atate padatulasi parigrane granam shravanamapi te charu charite.
विधूय क्लेशान् मे कुरु चरणयुग्मं द्रुतरसं भव क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते. One more time, right, Rajesh?
Yeah, two times, yeah.
विधूय क्लेशान् मे कुरु चरणयुग्मं द्रुतरसं भव क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते.
Lakshmi, the third line, first word, Bhavan Murtyaloke.
भवन्मूर्त्यालोके.
No, I think you're saying mu, it's mu, Murtyaloke.
भवन्मूर्त्या.
Yeah, correct, yes.
भवन्मूर्त्या, okay.
विधूय क्लेशन्मे कुरुचरणयुग्मं धृतरसां भवत्क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च पूजानविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिग्राणे ग्रानं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते विधूय क्लेशान्मे कुरुचरणयुग्मं धृतरसां भवत्क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि चाते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिग्राणे ग्रानं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते.
Answer it. Prabhuta devyaadhi prasabha chalite mamaka hridi त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्च रोमाञ्चो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीडा परिभवान्. So again, little bit continuation of this, because this is like praying to be that good devotee, right? So he says, with this, now we talked about all the physical ailments that you might have in the previous stanza. So he says, in addition to have those physical ailments, my mind is also a big problem, right? And we're going to talk a lot about the mind in the next dashakam in Ashtanga Yoga. So he says, my mind, I cannot keep my mind focused on different things. So he says, in addition to fixing the physical things, also fix my mind so that it does not keep wandering everywhere, right? And it always is able to focus on your particular form there, because just very similarly, when you have disturbances in your mind, so think of it as darkness, tamas, right? The disturbances which are there in your mind, just like how when light comes, the light removes all the darkness. He says, by visualizing your form in my mind, I will be able to always be parama sukhachit. I'll always be in a state of bliss, right? All those mental afflictions, everything will go away. So, and that, like he says, the true bhakti, and we're going to talk about the specific thing in a few other places, is the measure of a true bhakti is when you're hearing something, when you're seeing Bhagavan, or when you're chanting something, you should have horripilation all over your body. It says your hair on your body has to stand erect, right? So that is the bhakti. So when you can get to that level where you have horripilation all over your body and you have tears of joy running through your eyes, he says that is bhakti, right? So he says, give me that amount of devotion. So when I go look at your image, or when I go to the temple and pray to you, I'm getting that level of feeling, right? So that is the prayer here to say, give me that amount of bhakti. Prabhutadhi vyadhi prasabha chalite mamaka hridi, twadiyam tadrupam parama sukha Chidrupam Udiyat. You can break it that ma if you want. Chidrupam Udiyat. Udanchat Romancho Galita Bahu Harshashru Nivaho, Yatha Vismaryasam Durupashama Pida Paribhavan. Pretty much in this, the comma is only at the end of every line. प्रभूताधिव्याधिप्रसभचलिते मामकहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्च रोमाञ्चो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीडा परिभवान्.
Sorry, quick question. Second line in the book, it says Paramarasa. So should
Yeah,
I change
even
it to
I
Paramasukha?
have
Okay, so just change it
Paramarasa.
to sukha. It might means the same thing. Rasam is just the flavor or the sweetness of it. So sukha
Okay.
means sweet also, same thing. So just change it to parama sukha.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So I think some books might have certain words like this will be different. So just call out and then, but we are going to stick to the version I have, as a reference.
प्रभूतादिव्याधिप्रसभचलिते मामकहृदि वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्च द्रोमांचो गलितबहुर्हर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपमशमपीडा परिभवान्.
Durupash, the last one. Durupashama pida paribhavan.
Okay. प्रभूतादिव्याधिप्रसभचलिते मामकहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्च द्रोमांचो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपमशमपीडा परिभवान्.
Again, that word, you are adding an extra ma, Lakshmi Garu.
दुरुपशम पीडा परिभवान्.
Yeah.
प्रभूतादिव्याधिप्रसभचलिता मामकहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्च रोमाञ्चो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रु निवहो यदा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीडा परिभवान्. प्रभूतादिव्याधि प्रसभचलिते मामकहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्चत् रोमाञ्चो गलितबहुहर्षशृनिवहो यदा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीडापरिभवान्.
Kansanai. मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहु परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते मा भूत् वरदगदभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्तंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमन. So here, because Bhattatripad is suffering right now, so he's asking a very valid question, which I'm sure a lot of us have thought through at some point in our life. He says that I am being so devoted to you, right? I am coming, staying in Guruvayur. I'm thinking about you all the time, and I'm spending my entire day writing about these things, but I am still suffering. He says, and I know there are people who are not as devoted to you, who are not suffering. So he says, why is this contrast that is actually existing? How is it that they are not suffering? Not that they have to suffer, but they are having a nice time. So why is it that I am the one suffering, right? And and we all have asked, why me? What have I done? Now, I won't get into the details of this in this Dashakam because that's a separate topic which we were going to learn about enough about those things to say any karma you put out in terms of your action, your words, and your thoughts is never going to be eradicated. It is going to come back boomeranging to you. So that is absolutely there across all your hundreds of previous births, right? So you cannot escape about it. So let's not get into why it's happening. Now, in this particular context, he's saying that by not fixing me, this is because this is a devotee pleading to Bhagavan, right? He's saying by not fixing me and somebody else being happy not praying, it creates a bad reputation for you, Krishna. Because somebody else is going to say, look at that person, he doesn't pray, he's having a great life. Look at Bhattatri or look at us. We are all praying so much, we are having so many problems. This is going to bring bad reputation to you. So at least for that sake, you quickly eradicate all the problems that I am actually having, all the physical and mental problems I'm having, so you don't get a bad name. So this is just a prayer here, again saying that please, Marut Gehadisha means one who lives in Guruvayur. Kamsa Damana means the one who got rid of Kamsa. You please jhatiti, very quickly, you eradicate all the problems I have. So I am also happy. Marut Gehadisha, comma, put a comma there. Tvai Khalu Paranchopi Sukhino, comma. Bhavat Snehi Soham Subahu Paritapye Chakimidam. Akirtiste ma bhoot. So if you have a dwa sound there in Sanskrit, we're going to put a it and put a comma. Akirtiste ma bhoot, it, comma. Varada gadabharam prashamayan, comma. Bhavat bhaktotamsam jhatiti kuru mam kamsa damana. Bhaktotamsam uttama. So he's saying, make me the greatest of your devotee, right? So that's why he's not saying just fix it and then I don't want to be your devotee. He says, you fix my problems and then make me the greatest of devotees. Marudgehadhisha Tvai Khalu Paranchopi Sukhino Bhavat Snehi Soham Subahu Paritapye Chakimidam Akirteste ma bhoot Varadagada Bharam Prashamayan Bhavat Bhaktotamsam Jhatiti Kurumam Kamsadamana.
मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबुः परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्तेमभूत् वरद गदपारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्थंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमना.
The third line, Lakshmi Garuda, booth and then a comma, pause there. Okay, third line.
Is it da or ta?
It becomes a tha when you pause it there.
Okay. Okay. मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहु परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्तेमभूत् वरदगदभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्तंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमन।
मरुद्गेहाधीशा त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहु परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते मा भूत् वरदगदभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तो तं जतिति कुरु मां कंसदमना।
The
मरुद्गे
last cut now, 1 second. Last word, right? Kamsadamana. It's not a ah. It doesn't end with a ah sound. It's just a na.
कंसदहन. Okay.
Damana.
मरुद्गेहाधीशा त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबुः परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते महाभूत् वरदगदभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तो तं जतिति कुरु मां कंसदमन.
That's it. Kimuktair तव हि करुणा यावदुदीयात् अहं तावद्देव प्रहितविविधार्थ प्रलपितः पुरः क्लृप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुति निषेवा विरचयन्. So, like some of you will relate. So if you're a student and you don't feel like studying, you hate studying, let's say, but you still have to go to school. There's no escaping out of that, right? So you can hate doing it, but there's no other option. You have to go to school and you have to study. There's no way out of it, right? So similarly here, it's a prayer saying that while I am still not fixed and I still have problems, I know there is no other solution other than being constantly praying and getting devoted to you. So even though it might look like it is not getting fixed right now, there is literally no other option, right? So he says it's no use randomly kind of going and whining about this. That's literally the word he's saying. There's no use of me whining about this thing. I have to realize that the only solution here is constant devotion to you. So I will completely surrender down to you, right? Because you are the only one who can fix the problems I'm actually having. So yatha shakti, according to my capacity, nati nuti nisheva, means whether you are actually prostrating, doing namaskarams, or you're singing the praises, or you're worshipping, each one has different challenges, each one has different capacity. So he's saying, according to my capacity, O Krishna, I am going to do what I can. So do not compare me to somebody who's doing a lot more. I'm going to do the best of my capacity because there's no other choice for me other than to be completely devoted to you and completely surrender down to you. Kimuktair bhuyo bihi. So that is that you have there goes away. Visarga comma bhuyo bihi. Tavahi karuna yavadudiyat. So you have to put the it at the end of that line and a comma yavadudiyat. Next line, if you have a daham, that becomes aham. Aham tavaddeva prahita vividhartha pralapitaha. Puraha, if you have a visarga there, that takes a H sound. Purah klipte pade varada, comma. Tava neshyami divasan, put a in at the end of that line. Divasan, comma. If you have in at the beginning of the next line, that goes away. Yatha shakti vyaktam nati nuti nisheva virachayan. Kimuktair तव हि करुणा यावदुदीयात् अहं तावद्देव प्रहितविविधार्थ प्रलपितः पुरः क्लृप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुति निषेवा विरचयन्.
किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणा यावदुदीयात् अहं तावद्धेव प्रहितविविधार्थप्रलपितः पुरक्लृप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुति निषेवा विरचयन्. किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणा यावदुदियात् अहं तावद्देव प्रहितविविधार्थप्रलपितः पुरक्लुप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथाशक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुतिनिषेवा विरचयन्
किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणात् उदियात् अहं तावद्देव प्रहितविविधार्थ प्रलपिताः पुरक्लुप्ते पादे वरद तव निश्यामि दिवसन् यथा शक्तिव्याक्तं नतिनुति निषेव विरचयन् निषेवा विरचयन् किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणात् यावदुदितात् अहं तावद्देवी प्रहितविविधार्थ प्रलपिताः पुरक्लुप्ते पादे वरद तव निश्यामि दिवसन् यदा शक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुति निषेव विरचयन्.
Third line, Kalpana, after Varada, there is a comma. Third line. And Tava Neshyami. Now, are you following English script or Telugu script?
English.
Okay. I'm going to send you a different script end of the day today, okay? And see if that helps. I just created for my daughter because in English it doesn't say and all properly in the normal English one. So I added an extra a where that is coming. So because that's normally where it goes wrong. So Tava Nishyami Divasan. Okay, that word there. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, so that completes the Dashakam 3. So we'll go to Dashakam 4. So 4 is Ashtanga Yoga Varnanam. So talking about Ashtanga Yoga. So like just the way this has been structured as, like, just to recap, right? We saw in the first Dashakam, we saw the glory of Bhagavan, who is in Guru Ayappan's glory. Then second, we saw the form of the Bhagavan who is there in Guru Ayappan. Then third, we said, okay, if there's a Bhagavan that is there, then there are going to be devotees. So who is an ideal devotee and what are the characteristics and how do we become that ideal devotee? That is number 3. So number 4, Dashakam 4 is that ideal devotee who is described in Dashakam 3, for him to attain that Bhagavan who is defined in Dashakam 2, what is the path of getting there, right? That's what this Ashtanga Yoga is going to talk about. Now, you all might know about Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. A lot of that are going to come later, but I'll tell you where this Ashtanga Yoga fits in the context of all of that stuff, right? The yoga's root word is yuj. Yuj means union with God. So if somebody is doing yoga and says, I don't believe in God, the purpose is lost because the yoga's true meaning is, the root word is union with God, right? So it says now that all these different paths, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all of them, our ultimate aim is the same, right? To get liberated and finally to get merged with the Bhagavan. So that always remains the same. But Ashtanga Yoga, you have to think of it as the foundation that is actually required, because that is what is required for you to train your body, your mind, and everything, and breath, and get the necessary discipline. Because otherwise, none of those other yogas are going to be possible if your foundation is not strong. So that's the key connection. You're going to talk about it because this also, at the end of the day, this is not independent out of Bhakti Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga, right? This Ashtanga Yoga, as part of this of getting into Samadhi, as part of the Ashtanga Yoga, is going to include Bhakti Yoga as well. Is going to include Jnana Yoga as well. So it's all part of it, but that's a very core foundational aspect of it. So that's a general reference before we get started on it. So stanza 1. So there are primarily 3 tunes that we are going to follow in Narayaneeyam. What we saw in Dashakam 1 to 3 was the same one tune. It's like a 4-liner tune that we saw. This is the second tune. This is going to come in several other Dashakams in the future as well. So stanza 1. Kalyatam mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashtavid yoga charyaya pushtaya shrutavatushtimapnuya. Just like in the previous Dasakam, he said, we prayed saying that you have to give me good physical health. He says, if I have to own Ashtanga Yoga, if I have to do Ashtanga Yoga very well, and you'll see how hard Ashtanga Yoga is, he says, I cannot do it if I have physical problems. because this is going to require sitting for hours and doing meditation and everything, which you cannot if you have body problems, mental problems, need the strength, right? So the first stanza in this is a prayer saying, "Oh Guru Arpa, I want to attain you through Ashtanga Yoga. And for me to attain you to Ashtanga Yoga, first I need your blessings so that I am able to practice this, right? Physically and mentally, I'm able to practice this. So I need your blessings and your karunai to get started here. Kalyatam mama kurushva tavatim, comma, kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtam ashta vidha yoga charyaya, comma, pushtayashu tava tushtim apnuyam. You can break it that ma if you want. Tushtim apnuyam. Kalyata mama kurushva tavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashta vidhayogacharyaya pushtayashu tava tushtim apnuyam.
कल्यता मम कुरुष्व तावतीं कल्यते भवतुपासनं यया स्पष्टमष्टविधयोगचर्यया पुष्टयाशु तव तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम् कल्यतां मम कुरुष्व तावतीं कल्यते भवदुपासनं यया स्पष्टमष्टविधयोगचर्यया पुष्टयाशु तव तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम्
कल्यतां मम कुरुष्व तावतीं कल्यते भवद् उपासनां यया स्पष्टमष्टविधियोगचर्यया पुष्टयासु तव तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम् कल्यतां मम कुरुष्व तावतीं कल्यते भवदुपासनां यया स्पष्टमष्टविधियोगचर्यया पुष्टयास्तु तव पुष्टिमाप्नुयाम्
Tushti, ta sound. Tushtim apnuyam.
तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम्. Okay.
Stanza 2. ब्रह्मचर्य दृढतादिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढममी सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः. So this Ashtanga, before we get into the details, it has got Ashtanga 8. So it's got 8 limbs to that yoga part, right? The final 8th limb or the 8th part of it is Samadhi. So when somebody says, I'm attained the state of Samadhi, that is the final state of Ashtanga Yoga, right? So now to get to that state, you have to go through step by step. You cannot bypass a step. You cannot jump over any step. So before normally when I tell this, I normally tell ahead of time, I don't follow any of these. So I'll have to make that very clear because, it shouldn't feel like I'm preaching, through experience, right? Because it's very hard. So the 8 steps which are there, which are going to come are Yama, Niyama, and it's going to come Asana, Pranayama. So there's a first 4 set of things which prepare your body. And then it leads to the next set of 3 things, which is control of your mind and everything, which then eventually leads to the final state of Samadhi. So that is how the progress is. It actually goes very systematically, it goes. So you can't try to jump forward because then it'll break and you have to start all over again. So this stanza talks about the first 3. It talks about Yama, Niyama, and Asana. 3 first 3 parts. So Yama, the first simplest way to think about it is, Yama is how you behave towards someone else. So he says, before you get on this path of Ashtanga Yoga, you should start behaving properly towards other people. And that means ahimsa, not having any violence, physical violence, being truthful when you speak to somebody else. Because if you lie to somebody else, that is same as you beating somebody else, right? So you have to be truthful to somebody else, not do things like stealing, etc. Because at the end of the day, you're affecting. So anyway, whatever you are doing, you should be correct behavior towards somebody else is the first step, which is Yama. The second step, which is Niyama, is how you should live your own life. So this is something that does not affect others, but how you can control yourself. So this means cleanliness, internal cleanliness also. So because if your mind is thinking something wrong, it does not affect somebody else physically, but then it is impacting you, right? So you should have clean thoughts which is there. Then it's contentment with what you have, so not wanting more things, and then doing proper austerities and worship and everything. So it's whatever you are doing internally is the second one, which is keeping a good control, doing good things to yourself, right? That is the second portion, which is niyama. The third one, which is asana, is ability to sit properly. And that is very important because, you can't go into a state of samadhi and say, I can't sit, I need a couch for it, right? So you should be able to sit in a proper pose. So he says the Padmasana pose and the Sukhasana, the easy pose of sitting. So you need to be able to sit properly because only then your mind can also focus, right? So when we do in all these parayanams, you sit for 7 hours, so you should be able to sit through those things. Otherwise, you can't get a chair everywhere, right? So the first 3 of the Ashtanga Yoga is to say good behavior, good things onto other people. Second, good things onto yourself, doing things properly. Third is the proper ability to sit properly for long durations. So brahmacharya, which is coming there in the thing which is coming there, that is actually part of yama a little bit. It's also related to that. And what that actually means is it's saying a little bit of celibacy is required if you have to truly progress on this path of Ashtanga Yoga as well. Brahmacharya dhridatadibhir yamaihi. So add the ra that you have there. If you have it, that goes away. Put a visarga comma, yamaihi. Next word becomes aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dhridamami sukhasanam, comma, pankajadhyamapi va bhavatparaha. Brahmacharya dhridatadibhiryamaihi aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dhridamami sukhasanam pankajadhyamapi va bhavatparaha.
ब्रह्मचर्य दृढताभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढमपि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः.
Lakshmi got that first line.
दृढता
Dhridatadibhiryamaihi. Visarga there.
ब्रह्मचर्य दृढतादिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढमपि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः.
ब्रह्मचार्य दृढतादिभिर्यमाहि आप्लवादि नियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढतामि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि भवत्पराः.
Now the second line, dridhamami.
Dridhamami.
Kurmahe dridhamami.
Okay, dridhamami. Okay, yeah. Brahmacharya दृढताभिर्यमाहि आप्लवादि नियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढममि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि भवत्पराः.
The first word, Kalpana, brahmacharya.
Brahmacharya. Okay, thank you.
Stanza 3. Taramantaranu chintya santatam pranavayumabhiyamya nirmalaha indriyani vishayatatapahrtyasmahe bhavadupasanonmukhaha. So this Ashtanga Yoga, essentially, we're going to see examples of people who followed this later on. If you literally follow this step by step, you are guaranteed samadhi and liberation. There's no doubt about it. But it's a very hard process. So coming out of this, you will feel that, okay, what are the other alternatives, right? Because that's how hard this is. So the third one in this, the step in this is being able to control your breath. The pranayama, like we saw yama, niyama, asana, we saw 3. Fourth is pranayama. Pranayama is able to control your breath properly, right? So in that, it says by Tara Mantharanu. So using the Tara Mantharam, I'm going to then constantly do the proper inhalation. So which is Purakam is to inhale, Kumbhakam is to retain it, Rechakam is to exhale out. So there are standard rules of how much you take to inhale, you hold it, come down. For those who do Sandhya Vandanam, we do that Om Buhu every day, like 10 times each this thing, where it's really that process. It is the thing is timed so that you do the proper inhalation, holding, and exhalation, right? So anyway, so you have to do that. Many of you might be doing it as part of your meditation thing. So he says that pranayama, getting your breath under control, is very important. That is the fourth step. The fifth step is pratyahara. Now it starts getting really complicated. So pratyahara is getting your senses under control. And what that means, for example, you think practically, you're sitting in your puja room, somebody is cooking in the kitchen, immediately your nose can smell what is getting cooked. Right? If the temperature is too hot, temperature is so cold, your skin can start feeling, you start getting disturbances in your puja room. You're sitting and praying, your kids are fighting in the other room, your ears are wandering and saying, why are these people always fighting when I'm praying? Right? Now, you cannot prevent the kids from fighting. You cannot prevent your spouse from cooking when you're praying. So what this controlling of senses pratyahara says is, that should not disturb you. Now, that doesn't mean you should ignore. So that's not telling that when somebody is cooking, you close your nose because that smell is impacting you, or you close your ears because somebody's yelling is disturbing you. It says you should still be able to focus despite all of those things happening, right? That is pratyahara, which is extremely complicated, right? In fact, there is one, there's even a thing, which says, in the story where they say you go to the temple, and he says, go to the temple and pray, and this person is going in, and then he's not able to pray because people are constantly talking in temples, connecting with each other, discussing other things. But he says, why are you worried about it? You are there to pray. Let them talk what they want to talk, but we cannot, because our senses, we are not able to control our senses, right? So he says you cannot move forward in Ashtanga Yoga if you cannot get all of your five senses under control. The five senses in eyes, ears, nose, mouth, your touch, all of those things, right? So any of those things. So in fact, some of the greatest, we're going to see a person called Prithu, who's going to come later. In the Prithu Charitram, he'll meditate with Panchagni, which means there's going to be Agni on four sides and sitting under the sun, which is the fifth Agni. And then he'll meditate, right? Because he should say, my meditation should not get impacted by the heat coming from all sides, or standing in the rain and meditating, right? Saying it could rain, it could be cold outside, but that shouldn't impact. No, we don't have to go that point. My point is, you need to get your senses to that level of control, right? That is the fifth one here, Pratyahara. Taram antaranu chintya santatam, prana vayum abhiyamya. You can break it that ma. Vayum abhiyamya nirmalaha. Indriyani vishayat. So this word, we're going to say that line together, first of all, but you cannot break that middle word. So vishayatatapakhrityasmahe. Okay, you kind of have to say it together somehow. Vishayatatapakhrityasmahe bhavadupasanun mukhaha. Taramantharanu chintya santatam pranavayumabhiyamya nirmalaha indriyani vishayatatapakhrityasmahe bhavadupasanun mukhaha.
तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुम् अभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयाथतापहृत्यास्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुम् अभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयाथतापहृत्यास्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः.
Yeah, that's okay, Lakshmi Garu. Just say tyasmahe. There's no pause after that. It goes continuously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
तारमन्तरनु चिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमपि अभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विश्वयाततापरुत्यसमे भवत् उपासनो मुख्याः.
Mukhaha.
मुखाः.
See that word Vishayat, we cannot break it too much. The only way you can break it is Vishayat Athapahrityasmahe. Okay, so that's the only place you can potentially break it. So Vishayat Athapahrityasmahe.
Okay, yeah. तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयात्तपारुत्यसमे भवत् उपासनोन्मुखः.
I'll send you the right English breakdown of that offline. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we'll just switch for the second half of the class. Srilata, you can be a student, and Rati, you can be a student. Oh, sorry, Rati, you already did that. I think that somebody else had. Deepa is on. Okay, a lot of people. Yeah, Deepa is okay. Deepa, you can be a student. Yeah. Stanza 4. Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharaye madhishana muhurmuhu tena bhakti rasamantaradhrata udvahe bhavadangri chintakaha. So now we went through, up to this yama, niyama, asana 3, pranayama, pratyahara in the previous one. So we did until 5. So the pratyahara was where you kept your senses under control, right? All the indriyangal you kept under control. Now, until you do that, this is not going to happen, because now this is now telling it's not your senses are already under control. Now it's saying, how do you bring your mind under control, right? So you go back to the same example I said earlier. You're sitting in your puja room, you're hearing kids fighting, you're smelling the food which is actually getting cooked in the kitchen. Even without all of that happening, you can still be sitting in your puja room and your mind can wander into all of these places, and you can think about the problems you have. You can think about the food you just had for lunch, and your mind will wander, right? So even without any of these things happening, your mind can always get distracted, right? It's very hard to sit for 30 minutes and just focus. It's very, very hard. But he says that don't try to focus your mind till you can get your senses under control. That's why this Ashtanga Yoga is really going step by step. You cannot get your mind under control till your senses are under control. That's why this next one that is actually coming is what is called as Dharana, which is like a focused attention towards something, right? So that is explicitly forcing yourself to focus, which you have to first get your senses. And then at this point, a lot of people will say, oh, just close your eyes and think of a light. It's not possible for us. It's very, very hard, right? So that's why here, this way the spirituality is combined into the science also, right? Where he says, don't just think of anything, because you cannot think of anything. The practical approach for us is to think of something which is tangible, which is, he says, you keep that photo of Bhagavan in front of you, the Bhagavan who we described in Dasakam 2, right? Surya Spadhi Kiridam Urdhvatilaka Prodbhasi Phalantaram. That form of Bhagavan which you have, you keep that image in your mind. That will initially be very blurry. You will still not be able to focus on it, and that's totally fine. But it says the prayer is, I will still continue to try to focus on that image of yours till I can start getting a better picture. And even if I cannot focus on the full image, it says, pick one portion of the body. He says, just pick the feet of Bhagavan. He says, just focus your mind on the feet of Bhagavan, because that is very easy. Feet, you cannot vary too much, right? So you just start with the most simplest portion, or just focus on the Sudarshana Chakram as an example, right? You can fix anything you want. So by constantly focusing on one point of Bhagavan, I will get control of this. And once you start getting control of it, then you can start zooming out, and then you can start visualizing that full form of Bhagavan, because then you have something to lock your mind into. Because if you do not lock your mind onto something, your mind is going to keep wandering. It's very obvious, right? You have to lock your mind onto something. So this phase of dharana is very explicitly forcing your mind to lock onto something, which is, he says, the recommendation is you focus on the form of Bhagavan, which later on in the 90th chapter is going to describe exactly how to do it. But right now it says just focus. Aspute vapushi te prayatnato, comma, dharayema dishanam muhur muhuhu tena bhakti rasam, breaking at that rasam antarardratam. So put a im there, that mu that is there, we're going to break it. Antarardratam, comma. Next word starts with the u. Udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha. So this is where that Ashtanga Yoga is merging bhakti into it, right? He says you cannot separate bhakti out of it, because you have to imagine that form and then you have to constantly meditate. And even when later Narada and others are going to instruct people to meditate, they are going to describe with the exact form to Dhruva and everybody else, because that is the way you can keep your mind focused. Aspute vapushite prayatnato dharaye madishana muhur muhuhu tena bhakti rasam antarardratam udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha.
अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो धारये मदिषणा मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसम् अन्तराद्रतान् उद्वहेम भवदङ्घ्रिचिन्तकाः अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो धारये मदिषणा मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसम् अन्तराद्रतान् उद्वहेम भवदङ्घ्रिचिन्तकाः.
Shirtagaru, that third line, Antarardratam, im sound.
Okay, thank you.
Can I start?
Yeah, you can go.
Aspute vabushite prayatnato dharye madishanam muhurmuhuhu tena bhaktim rasa andradardratam udvhema bhagavan krichintakaha.
Bhavadangri, that word, Bhavadangri.
Okay, chintakaha. Okay. Aspute vabushite prayatnato dharye madishanam muhurmuhuhu tena bhaktirasam andarardratam udvhema bhavavankri chintakam.
That word again, Bhavadangri.
Bhavadankri.
Yeah, Bhavat Angri. Angri is feet. So Bhavadangri is focusing on your feet.
Okay.
Stanza 5. Bisphuta vayava bheda sundaram twadvapussuchirashila ashramam manasi chintayamahe dhyana yoga nirata swadhashrayaha. He says, like we said, the dharana is still continuing in this. So dharana, at first, it's going to be very hard. It's not going to be easy for anybody. It's going to be incomplete in your mind. But he says you first start by focusing on the feet. Then when you graduate from the feet, then you focus into the body. So with that, you force yourself, and your mind will deviate. It will go all over the place. By step, you start focusing on it till the point where ashramam. Okay, so it should come without any shramam. It should come without any effort. When you close your eyes, you should be able to say, okay, today I'm going to meditate on Guru Ayappan, and you go sit in your puja room, you do the pranayama, you sit, you close your eyes, and then you should be able to get the form without any worries. So you have to keep practicing till you get to that point, right? So without any effort, I'll be able to reach that point. That means the dharana stage, you are now maturing into dharana stage, because without maturing the dharana stage, you cannot go to the dhyana stage, which is the next one. So he says, with this, I will get myself ready to go to the next stage of dhyana. Visphuta vayava bheda sundaram, comma, tvad vapuhu, put a is, tvad vapus, suchira sheelanavashat, ashramam manasi chintayamahe, comma, dhyana yoga niratas twadashrayaha. That's why in so many of these things, they go through elaborate descriptions of Bhagavan in all of these things, so that you can lock that vision in your mind. Now, of course, now we have photos, so you can always take a look at it, and whichever photo you prefer, you can lock your mind. So even later on, when Dhruva is going to go meditate, Narada is going to describe the form that he has to meditate, and Dhruva has to lock that form in his mind. And that's when, it gets so embedded in your mind and your heart that when you close your eyes, that form comes, right? विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरं त्वद्वपुःसुचिरशीलनावशात् आश्रमं मनसि चिन्तयामहे ध्यानयोगनिरतास्त्वधाश्रयाः
विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरं त्वद्वपुःसुचिरशील विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरं त्वद्वपुःसुचिरशीलनावशात् आश्रमं मनसि चिन्तयामहे ध्यानयोगनिरतास्त्वदाश्रयाः विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरं त्वद्वपुःसुचिरशीलनावशात् आश्रमं मनसि चिन्तयामहे ध्यानयोगनिरतास्त्वदाश्रयाः
विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरं त्वद्वपुःसुचिरशीलनावशात् आश्रमं मनसि चिन्तयामहे ध्यानयोगनिरतास्त्वदाश्रयाः विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरं त्वद्वपुःसुचिरशीलनावशात् आश्रमं मनसि चिन्तयामहे निरतास्त्वदाश्रयाः.
Twadashrayah. Let's say it together. Stanza 6. ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिमीदृशीम् उन्मिषन् मधुरताहृतात्मनां सान्द्रमोदरसरूपमान्तरं ब्रह्मरूपमयितेव भासते. So once you get the dharana under control, so next you come to the state called as dhyana. So when we say, when people say I'm in dhyanam, I'm in meditation, right? That is the state. That is different from the dharana state where you are. So the subtle difference is in dharana, you are actively holding your mind on to something, right? Like we said, if I'm imagining that form of Guru Ayappan, then I'm actually zooming in, and it's okay for your mind to wander within that scope. So you can say, oh, you know what, why is that, he's wearing yellow today, he's dark yellow, light yellow, pitambaram, all of that is okay. Your mind, you're still focusing it on that, right? Now, in dhyana, is you are not putting any effort. So in the previous one, even when it says ashramam, without any effort, you're still having to put some amount of focus. But in dhyanam, it becomes ekagra chittam. It is the single mind is flowing only in one direction without any break, no scattered attention, right? And the simplest example you can think about it is if you're a wildlife photographer, you are standing at a distance, you're filming a tiger, and tiger is moving. Now you're taking your camera and you're moving your camera, you're adjusting your lens. You're still trying to focus. You still get the tiger in your frame, but you're adjusting your lens and you're focusing, zooming in, zooming out, all of that stuff. That is dharana. You're still getting the tiger in your frame. In dhyana, you are not having to do anything to your camera or your lens. It is just getting the tiger in a proper zoom and everything clarity, which means it's just one focus. You just go sit. You don't have to put any effort at all. Right? That is the first stage of dhyana, which is you're imagining that form of Bhagavan. The second stage of dhyana, which you have to go into, is going away from the nirguna form. Nirguna form is the form you're seeing in all the pictures, to the saguna form, which is no form. So when somebody says meditate on nothing, that is this stage. You cannot come to this stage till you have gone through all of those other stages. Because in this stage, you then have to imagine nothing. And you can't imagine anything, right? It's not possible. So that's why he says you first start by imagining something, get that under control. Once you do that under control, then you can focus on nothingness, which is the pure Brahman form, which doesn't have any shape, which doesn't have any form or color or any of that stuff. So at that time, you truly are meditating onto that Brahma Rupamai. You're focusing on that Saguna form of the Brahman, which is that state you have to attain. Dhyayatam sakala murtim idrishim. So break at that. If you have a mu, we're going to put a im there. Murtim idrishim, comma. Next word will start with the u. Unmishan madhurata hritatmanam. So all the time you are always in a state of bliss. So you are no longer upset about anything because your senses are under control, your mind is under control, your problems are no longer there. Your problems are still there. You just don't care about them anymore, right? So you got to get to that point. Because otherwise you'll keep thinking about your problems. That's why getting that senses and mind under control is important. Sandra moda rasa rupamantaram, comma, Brahma Rupamayi Teva Bhasate. Dhyayatam Sakala Murtimi Drishim Unmishan Madhurata Hritatmanam Sandramodarasa Rupamantaram Brahma Rupamayi Teva Bhasate.
ध्यायतां सकलमूर्ति ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिं ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिमीदृशीम् उन्मिषन् मधुरतात्मनाम् सान्द्रमोदरसरूपमातरं ब्रह्मरूपमयितेव भासते.
So that word, Shrita Garu, Madhurata Hritatmanam. Unmishan Madhurata Hritatmana. First line.
Okay, Madhurata.
Can you please say that first line one more time?
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Dhyayatam Sakala Murtim Idrishim Im, comma, Unmishan Madhurata Hritatmanam.
ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिम् ईदृशीम् उन्मिषन् मधुरताहृतात्मनां सान्द्रमोदरसरूपमातरं ब्रह्मरूपमयितेव भासते.
ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिमीं त्रिशीं उन्मिषां मधुरतात्रतात्मतां सान्द्रमोदरस्वरूपमान्तरं ब्रह्मरूपमयितेव भासते.
Yeah, that first line, last word, Deepa, once again, the first line, last word, Hritatmanam.
Can you?
Madhurata, that word, Madhurata Hritatmanam.
I lost you.
Okay, why don't you say it? I'll correct it when you say it.
Dhyayadam sagala murtimim. Is that where we are saying?
No, yeah, keep going.
Dhyayadam sagala murtimim trishim unmishan madhuratahritatmadam.
Hritatmanam.
Manam, okay. Madhuratahritatmanam sandramodara sarupamantaram brahmarupamai teva bhasate.
That's a 7. Tatsamasvadhana rupinim stitim Twatsamadhimayi Vishwanayaka Ashritah Punaratah Parichyutau Arabhe Mahicha Dharanadikam. So now, once you are in that state, you are not yet there in the full samadhi, but it is called as a nirvikalpa samadhi, which is one state before the actual samadhi. So in this state, so when you hear about the story of Vishwamitra was, in a state of meditation, and then somebody comes to disturb, right? That is this state that they are in, right? They are not in the full samadhi state; they are in the nirvikalpa samadhi state. So even though you are in this state, you can still fall off the state because the mind and the senses are so hard to keep it under control. So even though you progress and you get here, you can fall off from the state due to distraction, and sometimes you'll start enjoying the state, which also becomes a problem because when you start enjoying the bliss of being in the state, that is also a problem. It will distract you because then you start feeling something, right? You start liking something. So then your senses are again coming into play. So he says there are several reasons why even after you reach this state, you may fall. But like I said, it has to be progressive. So he says, even if I fall off this state, I'm going to go back I'm going to go back to the dharana where I have to get my senses under control. I have to get my mind under control, and I'm going to repeat it all over again. So that's why this process has to be step by step. You cannot try to jump over a particular step. And then if you're failing, you have to go back, take it all over again and come back, right? Because otherwise you will not make progress on this. Tat samaswadhana rupinim stitim, comma, tvat samadhimayi vishwanayaka ashritaha, put a F to join, ashritah punarataha, again put a F to join, punaratah. So the next word we're going to break it. It's parichyutau. So if you have parichyutavara, if you have all of those extra things, we're just going to break it. Parichyutau, comma, and then the va becomes a then. Okay, so parichyutau, comma, arabhemahi cha dharanadikam. Tatsama rupinim stithim tvatsamadhimayi vishwanayaka ashritah punaratah parichyutau arabhemahi cha dharanadikam.
तत्समास्वधन रूपिणीं स्थितिं त्वत्स्वमादिमयि विश्वनायका आश्रितः पुनरतः परिच्युतौ आरभे महि च धारणादिकम् तत्समास्वदन रूपिणीं स्थितिं त्वत्समादिमयि विश्वनायका आश्रितः पुनरतः परिच्युतौ आरभे महि च धारणादिकम्
तत्समास्वदनरूपिणीं स्थितिं त्वत्समाधिमयि विश्वनायका आश्रितां पुनरतः परिच्युतौ आरभे महि चादराणि
Arabhe mahicha dharanadikam.
Okay, split is the other side. तत्समास्वदनरूपिणीं स्थितिं त्वत्समाधिमयि विश्वनायका आश्रितां पुनरतं परिच्युतौ आरभे महि च धारणाधिकम्.
That's it. Ittamabhyasana nirbharollasattvatparatma sukha kalpitotsavaha mukta bhakta kula maulitam gataha sancharema shukha narada divate. If you remember in Dasakam 3, he said some of the greatest devotees of you, like Narada, Shuka Brahman, they're always in a state of bliss. They're always, enjoying. They're not having any sufferings. They're not having any problems, and they're able to go anywhere you want. He says, once you attain the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when you're able to attain that state, then you will also become like that, because that is that state where at that point, nothing is going to worry you anymore. You are not going to get distracted with anything. Nothing is going to upset you. Nothing is going to drag you down. You're always in a state of bliss. So when you're always in a state of bliss and you don't care about anything, then you can go wherever you want in terms of wandering physically, and nothing is going to stop you. So you're always going to be thinking about Bhagavan wherever you go. The location doesn't matter, right? So at that time, you'll be able to freely wander around, just like how Shukha and Narada and your greatest of your devotees are roaming around mukta, completely free, not being bound by anything else. Ittam abhyasana nirbharolasat. Okay, nirbharolasat, then put a plus there. Tvat paratma sukha kalpitotsavaha. So that whole line is together. Mukta bhakta kula maulitam gataha, comma, sancharema shuka naradadivat. Ittamabhyasana nirbharolasatvatparatma sukha kalpitotsavaha mukta bhakta kula maulitam gataha sancharema shuka naradadivat.
इत्थमभ्यसन निर्भरोल्लसत्वत्परात्मसुखकल्पितोत्सवाः मुक्तभक्तकुलिमौलितां गताः सञ्चरेम शुकनारदादिवत् इत्थमभ्यसननिर्भरोल्लसत्वत्परात्मसुखकल्पितोत्सवाः मुक्तभक्तकुलिमौलितां गताः सञ्चरेम शुकनारदादिवत्.
Chinta Karu, that third line, Mukta Bhakta Kula. I think that Kula, you heard something else I heard. It's Kula.
मुक्तभक्तकुलमौलितां गताः.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
इत्थमभ्यसननिर्भरोल्लसा त्वत्परात्मसुखकल्पितोत्सवाः मुग्धभक्तकुलमौलितां गताः सञ्चरेन्मशुकनारदादिवत् इत्थमभ्यसननिर्भरोल्लसा त्वत्परात्मसुखकल्पितोत्सवाः मुग्धभक्तकुलमौलितां गताः सञ्चरेम शुकनारदादिवत्.
That's right. Tvatsamadhi vijaye tuyah punaha mangshu moksha rasikah kramena va yogavashyamanilam shadashrayaihi unnayat yaja sushumnaya shanaihi. So a little bit, it is going to get a little bit technical for those who are interested. So when you finally reach that stage now, you're now reaching the 8th stage of samadhi, right? So when you say somebody is in a state of samadhi, when you say the great gurus have attained the state of samadhi. So once they attain that state of samadhi, at that time, then everything becomes still for them, right? The mind is not wavering, they're no longer thinking of I am me, I am this body, I'm meditating. None of those things exist anymore, right? You essentially completely connected in the mind to the Paramatma, but your body is still there, right? So at this time, the yogi, because at the time you're a yogi, because you have full control here at this point. So you have a couple of choices you have for getting liberated, right? So as you all know, we have these chakras that we have in our body, and then you have the various nadis which actually go through all of those things. So there's the Sushumna nadi, that is why it is being referred here, is the nadi which connects the bottom Mooladhara chakra to the Sahasrara chakra, which is at the top of your crown, top of your head. And that is the one which actually goes through a straight line in your body, right? So that Sahasrara chakra has different names for it. It's called Brahmarandra. It's all of those different names because that's where it's going to exit eventually. So there are 101 nadis which actually go across your body and finally reach the Sahasrara chakra. If your Jivatma, which is for if you don't get liberated, it goes through any of those 100 other nadis eventually, that means you are not going to get liberated. But a yogi who has reached the samadhi, who has very good control, what that yogi can do is he can actually take his pranavayu through that Sushumna nadi, from the Mooladhara chakra at the bottom. It goes one level above and he can control it and move it through each of the chakras above. So he can literally take, he can literally take that pranavayu and first bring to one chakra, then bring it to the next. He can literally move it and hold it there, right? And at that point, he can completely control this. So this is what he's telling. So with that, what this person who's in a state of samadhi can do is he can control this pranavayu and then take it along the Sushumna nadi so that that person can get liberated, right? And then otherwise, if for us, it's going to go through any of these other nadis because we are not going to put any effort. So if you're, for example, if you're like a normal person who's about to die or who dies, you're not putting any effort of controlling your pranavayu, right? So at that time, it's just going to go through one of those things and they'll have a certain type of an exit which you do not control. This is a controlled exit. So there are several people later on who are going to do this controlled exit. Later on, when we see Daksha Charitra, when Sati is going to give up her body, she's going to do a controlled exit like this, right? So there are a lot of people who will do a very controlled exit because they can control how the pranavayu is going through their body. So Tvat Samadhi Vijaye Tu Yaha, put a F there, Yaf Punaha, put a Visarga comma, Yaf Punaha. Next line, Ir goes away. Mankshu Moksha Rasikaha, put a Ich, Rasikah kramenava. So wherever there is a visarga coming, we're going to put joining letters, right? Unless we're pausing. So Mankshu Moksha Rasika Kramenava Yoga Vashyam Anilam Shadashrayehi. So the ru that is there, we're going to break it. Visarga comma Shadashrayehi. Next word will start with the U. Unnayatyaja Sushumnaya Shanaihi. Tvatsamadhi vijaye tuyah punaha Mankshu Moksha Rasika Kramena va Yoga Vashyamanilam Shadashrayehi Unnayatyaja Sushumnaya Shanaihi.
त्वत्समाधिविजयेतु यः पुनः मंक्षुमोक्षरसिकः क्रमेण वा योगवश्यमनिलं षडाश्रयैः उन्नयत्यज सुषुम्नया शनैः.
Shirita, go to that first line. Punaha, the visarga sound.
Okay, punaha. Okay. त्वत्समाधिविजयेतु यः पुनः मंक्षुमोक्षरसिकः क्रमेण वा योगवश्यमनिलं षडाश्रयैः उन्नयत्यज सुषुम्नया शनैः. Is it okay?
Okay.
Tvalsamadhi Vijayetuyam. I just didn't get it, the whole thing.
Yaf punaha.
Yash Punaha. I didn't follow you actually.
Sorry, so that word yaha that is there, you put a F to join it. So it becomes yaf punaha Mankshu Moksha Rasika Kramenava.
Moksha Rasika Kramenava Yoga Vashyamanilam Shadashrayaihi Unnayatyaja Tush. I don't know the whole thing. I didn't get it.
Okay, Unnayatyaja
Unnayatyajat
Sushumnaya.
Sushumnaya Shanaihi.
Yeah.
Sushumnaya Shanaihi. Tvalsamadhi Vijayetuyam.
Yaf, yam. You're saying yam, it's yaf, F sound. Frank. Yaf punaha.
Tuyaf Punaha.
Mankshu.
Yeah, I got it now. Mankshu Moksha Rasigamhu Kramenava Yoga Vashyamanilam Shradashrayaihi Unnayatyaja Sushmuna Yashanaihi.
Sushumnaya.
Sushumnaya. Okay, split is there. Yashayai.
Sushumnaya Shanaihi. It's two different words. Sushumnaya Shanaihi. Okay. Okay, we'll stop here today because the next one gets into how you can take your Jivatma and exit out of the body and how you control it, which will be a long conversation. So, Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam Kaladeshavadibhyam Nirmuktam Nityamuktam Nigamashatasahasrena Nirbhasyamanam Aspashtam Drishtamatre Punarurpurushartatmakam Brahma Tattvam Tattavadbhati Sakshad Guru Pavanapure Hanta Bhagyam Jananam Kahena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana Va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanahi Samarpayami. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rajesh Garu.
Thank you, Rajesh.
See you next week. Bye.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Bye.
Thank you.